Right now, beneath the streets of Naples, scientists are tracking something deeply unusual. Over the past 2 weeks, underground temperatures inside the Campi Flegrei volcanic system reportedly surged from 173 degrees Celsius to 213 degrees Celsius, a 40-degree increase in just 14 days. And according to researchers monitoring the area, that kind of rapid thermal acceleration is not considered normal geothermal behavior. What's making experts even more concerned is that the heat doesn't appear to be coming from a single location. Its multiple underground hot zones are now being detected across different parts of the caldera at the same time. At the very same moment, the ground itself has continued rising, while seismic pressure beneath the region keeps building. Scientists are still studying what exactly is driving these changes. But one thing is becoming harder to ignore: the entire volcanic system appears to be growing more active week by week. Stay updated on the latest developments happening beneath Campi Flegrei and other extreme geological events around the world by subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss the next major update. At first, scientists monitoring Campi Flegrei thought the temperature increase might simply be a temporary fluctuation. Volcanic systems naturally change over time, and small thermal variations are not unusual in geothermal regions. But what happened during the second half of January quickly began drawing far more attention. The underground readings were no longer moving gradually, they were jumping. In just 14 days, temperatures reportedly climbed from 173 degrees Celsius to more than 213 degrees Celsius. That kind of increase over such a short period immediately raised concern among researchers studying the caldera. According to monitoring teams, rapid thermal acceleration like this can sometimes indicate rising pressure or increased movement of hot fluids beneath the surface. What made the situation even more unsettling was the speed. Every new reading appeared hotter than the last. Every update suggested the underground system was becoming more active, not less. And as scientists continued reviewing the data coming from beneath Naples, one question kept growing harder to answer: why was the heat rising this fast now? What truly unsettled researchers was not just the rising temperature itself, but where the heat was appearing. Normally, when volcanic systems become more active, scientists can often trace the thermal increase back to one concentrated area underground. But at Campi Flegrei, the latest monitoring data appeared to show something very different. Its multiple hot zones were being detected across separate parts of the caldera at nearly the same time. Some were located near the Solfatara crater, others appeared closer to Pisciarelli. Additional thermal anomalies were reportedly observed in areas that had shown far less activity in previous months. To volcanologists, this suggested the underground system might not be reacting in one isolated pocket, but across a much broader network beneath Naples. That possibility immediately raised concern, because widespread thermal activity can indicate deeper pressure changes moving through the volcanic structure itself. Scientists are still analyzing exactly what is driving these underground shifts, but one thing became increasingly difficult to ignore. The heat was no longer concentrated in one place. It appeared to be spreading throughout the system. As the underground temperatures continued climbing, scientists began focusing on another major warning sign appearing beneath Campi Flegrei: ground uplift. During the same period that thermal readings increased rapidly, monitoring stations also detected the surface slowly rising across parts of the caldera. The uplift measured roughly 8 mm in just 2 weeks. That may sound small, but in volcanic systems, even minor vertical movement can signal major pressure changes underground. Researchers explain that when magma or superheated gases begin pushing upward, the ground above can gradually swell as the pressure builds beneath the surface. In other words, the Earth itself starts responding to what is happening deep below Naples. What concerned experts was not only that the uplift was happening, but that it appeared to be accelerating alongside the temperature increase. Both signals were rising together at the same time. To volcanologists, that combination immediately becomes more difficult to ignore. Higher heat, increasing pressure, rising ground movement. Those are the exact kinds of patterns scientists closely monitor inside active volcanic systems. Authorities continue emphasizing that there is currently no confirmed eruption timeline, but researchers are watching the situation very carefully as new seismic and thermal data continues coming in week after week. As concern inside the scientific community continued growing, reports began circulating that Italian monitoring authorities had elevated internal alert discussions surrounding Campi Flegrei during late January. According to several sources reviewing the situation, its government officials and emergency management teams were receiving updated assessments as new thermal and seismic data continued arriving from beneath Naples. What fueled public anxiety was not the existence of monitoring itself, but the growing feeling that ordinary residents did not fully understand how unusual the recent activity had become. While scientists continued analyzing the data carefully, many people living near the caldera were still going about their daily lives with little awareness of the accelerating underground changes. That disconnect started generating frustration online. Residents began asking questions about the temperature spikes, the increasing uplift, and the repeated earthquake activity being discussed across social media. Some wondered whether authorities should communicate more openly about what scientists were observing beneath the region. Others feared that public warnings could create unnecessary panic in one of Europe's most densely populated metropolitan areas. Experts continue emphasizing that monitoring systems remain active 24 hours a day, and that no official eruption prediction has been announced. But as pressure readings, gas emissions, and thermal activity continue increasing together, public concern surrounding Campi Flegrei is clearly beginning to grow. As the ground beneath Campi Flegrei continued slowly rising, more residents around Naples and Pozzuoli began noticing subtle changes in their surroundings. At first, the reports sounded isolated and unrelated. Some people described small cracks appearing in apartment walls. Others mentioned doors suddenly sticking or floors feeling uneven beneath their feet. In several neighborhoods, residents reported hearing unusual creaking sounds inside older buildings during the night. Individually, none of these signs seemed dramatic, but taken together, they started painting a more unsettling picture. Scientists explain that when ground uplift accelerates inside a volcanic caldera, infrastructure can gradually respond to the pressure building underneath. Roads may shift slightly. Pipes can become strained. Older structures may begin showing stress long before any major geological event occurs. That growing connection between underground pressure and visible surface damage is what began making many local residents uneasy. Social media posts discussing cracked walls and minor tremors started spreading more rapidly throughout February. For some families, the fear was not just about a possible eruption, but about uncertainty itself. Nobody knew exactly how far the activity would progress, or whether the acceleration would eventually stabilize. And with each passing week, more people began realizing that the ground beneath their city might not be as stable as they once believed. As scientists continued comparing the latest data from Campi Flegrei with past volcanic events around the world, several similarities began drawing attention. Researchers studying thermal activity, seismic pressure, and ground uplift noted that comparable patterns had been observed before periods of increased volcanic unrest in places like Iceland and Chile. In those cases, rising underground temperatures, accelerating uplift, and repeated earthquake swarms appeared together, before major geological activity followed months later. That does not mean Campi Flegrei is guaranteed to erupt, and experts continue warning against jumping to conclusions. But historical comparisons are one of the main tools volcanologists use when evaluating how active systems evolve over time. What concerned many researchers was not a single measurement by itself, but the way multiple warning signals were increasing simultaneously beneath Naples. Heat was rising. Pressure was building. Seismic activity continued fluctuating, and according to monitoring teams, the overall trend did not appear to be slowing down. For many people following the situation closely, the similarities to previous volcanic unrest around the world only added to the growing sense of uncertainty surrounding what might happen next beneath Campi Flegrei. What makes the situation around Campi Flegrei even more unsettling is the number of people living directly above the volcanic system. Nearly 3 million residents live throughout the greater Naples region, many of them only a short distance from areas experiencing increased seismic and geothermal activity. For most families, daily life has continued normally. People go to work, children attend school, restaurants stay busy, and traffic fills the streets just as it always has. But beneath that normal routine, scientists continue tracking changes underground that appear to be growing more intense over time. For elderly residents, families with small children, or people with limited mobility, the idea of a sudden evacuation raises serious concerns. Many local residents have started turning to social media searching for answers, trying to understand whether the recent activity is simply part of Campi Flegrei's natural cycle, or a warning sign of something larger developing beneath the city. That uncertainty is what creates the most anxiety. Not knowing what happens next. Not knowing whether the acceleration will stop. And not knowing how much time people would have to react if conditions suddenly became more dangerous. Scientists monitoring Campi Flegrei were no longer focused on a single unusual reading. They were watching a pattern that appeared to be intensifying across multiple systems at the same time. Underground temperatures continued rising. Gas emissions remained elevated. Small earthquake swarms kept shaking parts of the region. And perhaps most concerning of all, the overall rate of activity did not appear to be slowing down. Researchers repeatedly described the situation using one word: accelerating. That word began appearing more often in scientific discussions surrounding the caldera, because the measurements were not stabilizing. Each new update suggested the underground system was continuing to evolve week after week. More thermal anomalies were being detected. Pressure readings remained elevated. Ground uplift continued affecting parts of the area. Scientists are still carefully analyzing the data, and officials continue emphasizing that there is no confirmed timeline for an eruption. But acceleration inside volcanic systems always receives serious attention, because it can signal that underground processes are becoming more dynamic over time. For residents living near Naples, that growing uncertainty has become difficult to ignore. Every new tremor, every report of increased gas activity, and every update from monitoring stations now carries a heavier emotional weight than before. The deeper concern is no longer whether Campi Flegrei is active. The concern is how far this acceleration could continue. What makes Campi Flegrei so important is that this is not an isolated volcano far from civilization. The caldera sits directly beside one of the most densely populated regions in Europe. That means any major escalation in volcanic activity could potentially affect far more than just Naples itself. Scientists say a significant eruption, depending on its size and duration, could disrupt transportation, air traffic, infrastructure, and daily life across parts of Italy and possibly beyond. Even moderate ash emissions can create serious problems for airports, highways, and surrounding communities. Researchers continue stressing that there is currently no confirmed eruption forecast, but the growing activity beneath the caldera is being monitored extremely closely because of how many people and systems could be impacted if conditions worsen. For many residents, the fear is not only about the volcano itself, but about how quickly modern cities can become vulnerable when natural systems begin changing underneath them. And as underground pressure, heat, and seismic activity continue evolving together, more people are beginning to ask the same question. How much further can this system intensify before something finally changes above the surface? Right now, scientists continue monitoring Campi Flegrei around the clock as underground temperatures, seismic activity, gas emissions, and ground uplift remain under close observation. No one can say with certainty what will happen next, or whether the current acceleration will eventually stabilize. But the recent changes beneath Naples have clearly captured global attention. For millions of people living near the caldera, the uncertainty itself has become the most unsettling part of the story. And now the question is no longer whether Campi Flegrei is active. The real question is how far this activity could progress in the months ahead. If you are living near Naples right now, would you stay and wait for more information? Or would you leave before conditions became more dangerous? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for future updates as scientists continue tracking this developing situation.